I have not trimmed or cut my hair in a little over 6 years. Yeah, there are a lot of lies that I feel that we are told in the natural hair community. I'm going to be doing a 4-week series breaking down 4 of them. And so I figured I had to start with this one because it's near and dear to my heart. I made a video about this at the end of 2023, and I just figured it was time to update my thoughts on this in a more clear manner. When I made that video back in 2023 about how I had not trimmed my hair in over 5 years, I got a lot of hoopla from people who felt like I was crazy for saying this, and they cited all their reasons and blah, 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 blah. So I want to break down why I'm doubling down on why I don't think it's necessary to trim your ends if you don't want to in this video. And if you're someone who feels like they struggle to advocate for themselves with your hairstylist, feel free to bring up some of these points at your next session. By the way, you're probably wondering what's going on with my hair today. I am in the middle of rebraiding it, so we've kind of got this half and half Harvey Dent Two-Face look going on, so bear with me. I have always heard this narrative that you should trim your hair and trim your hair frequently if you want your hair to grow. And one of the first reasons that they use to explain that theory has to do with split ends, which I feel are simply overhyped and misunderstood. They say that you should trim your ends to prevent split ends or get rid of the ones that are already there. But you see, here's the problem. Whenever I'm watching these videos of hairstylists, they show you someone's hair where it's very uneven and jagged ends, and they say, look at these horrible split ends. You have to get rid of them, otherwise your hair is not going to grow. 99% of the time, when you're looking at someone's hair from that distance, you're not even actually assessing as to whether or not every single strand is truly a split end. You're just looking at the ends of someone's hair and saying that because it's uneven and it's ragged and jagged, that they're all split ends. That's impossible. Even if there are split ends in that person's hair, which I'm sure there are because everybody has split ends, there's no way that every single strand of hair has a split end at the exact same point. So because of that, for you to just take your scissors and go, snip, 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 you are going to inevitably be cutting away length that could have been saved or retained, but you chose to just cut it because you think that straight, blunt ends just means that there's no longer going to be split ends there, and it makes no sense to me. Your hair is going to get split ends. How quickly you get split ends and to what level of degree those split ends are is going to do more with how you actually manage your hair. But even if you do get split ends, it's not the end of the world. And these stories of if you don't cut your split ends are going to travel all the way up to the shaft of your hair and then it's going to break off. Well, I guess my question to that would be, when is that going to happen to me? Because like I said, I haven't cut my hair in over 6 years. I'm sure I have split ends in my hair right now, and yet I still have hair on my head. I do not see masses of hair falling out of my head, even though I haven't cut them. Where is that theory actually coming from? And has it ever actually been put to the test? Or is it just something that people say without actually knowing whether or not it's true? I view split ends as a way of life that will inevitably happen to all of us, but again, the level of how bad they're going to be is going to be predominantly based upon how you actually handle your hair, less so on how frequently you cut your hair, in my opinion. The second most common argument that I will oftentimes hear is that you have to trim your ends because those ends are weak and damaged. And weak and damaged ends equals bad hair. So if you trim or remove those bad ends, then you're going to be able to retain more hair length and your hair is going to get longer. Here's the reality. The ends of your hair are the oldest parts of your hair. They're inevitably going to weather, become thinner, potentially become brittle, and break. They're going to be weaker. They've been through the most. Of course they are. That doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong and you have to remove it. I don't subscribe to this idea that hair is supposed to be uniformly even from root to tip. That is not how our hair actually grows out of our head. We are supposed to be on a natural hair journey, right? So why don't we think about how our hair naturally grows out of our hair, which is not this uniform idea of perfection, which simply doesn't exist. When I say this, I've been threatened with the phrase, well, if you don't trim those ends, then they're gonna trim themselves. And my response to that is, cool, let them. You're telling me that at a certain point, the ends of my hair are going to just naturally fall off because they've been through too much and they are broken and split, and now it's their time to fall off? That sounds like a natural process to me. That doesn't sound like the end of the world. I still would have been able to retain more hair length, allowing my hair to decide which and when certain ends will naturally fall off, as opposed to me taking scissors to it every 3 months to try to force a blunt haircut, which will never be able to be maintained long term. And why is that? Because our hair grows at different rates all the time. All of the hair strands on your hair have different life cycles and will grow at different lengths and at different times, which means that even when you cut your hair into some type of blunt haircut, inevitably, over time, even if you were to do nothing to your hair, nothing damaging to your hair whatsoever, your hair will eventually become uneven again. Because that's how it's supposed to grow. You're always going to have tapered ends that grow in that upside down triangular shape. So if that's the case, and we know that to be true, then why must we insist upon lying to people, telling them that there's something wrong with them, something wrong with their hair, that it's super unhealthy for their hair to have tapered ends if that's what your hair is naturally doing? It's like we're being gaslit beyond belief, and it needs to stop. What irritates me is that a lot of these hairstylists will shame you for not going into their salon every few weeks, as if you've done some horrible crime. Why don't you admit to the fact that I keep your lights on by coming into your salon every few weeks? Yeah, nobody wants to talk about that part. Why would a hairstylist who literally makes a living based off of how frequently you frequent their hair salon ever give you advice or the truth about the fact that they need you a lot more than you need them? A lot of your hair care practices could be done at home. I'm not saying that you should shun hairstylists and that you should never go there. No, go there if you want to. But the idea that you have to in order to keep up with these trims is a lie. Let's not act like there isn't a clear incentive there. The third reason why I hear people say that you have to trim your hair is because it makes detangling so much easier. Now, this one is somewhat accurate, but hear me out. Yes, freshly trimmed hair that is all in one blunt direction is going to be easier to comb than hair strands that could be uneven and potentially wrap around each other or wrap around the bristles on a comb or a brush. But I think this really depends on what you're actually expecting from your hair in the first place. Because I have 4C hair, okay? My hair is going to tangle. And that's not a flaw, that's just a part of my hair's personality. That's an aspect to my hair that I have long since accepted. I don't use combs or brushes in my hair, so I'm not looking for my hair to be butter smooth or for anything to be able to glide through it. If you feel that detangling and how easily you can detangle your hair with some type of tool is a metric as to whether or not your hair is healthy and will thereby start to grow longer, hey, that's up to you if that's what you want to believe. However, to make that some type of universal standard for all people, in spite of what their hair type is, in spite of their lifestyle, in spite of what it is that they actually want, is where I have a problem. A lot of this is subjective, yet people treat it as if it's Bible, and it's not. If someone like myself doesn't care about detangling in that way, because that's not how I handle detangling with my hair type, how are you going to tell me that I have to trim my hair to make detangling with your method easier? And let's be honest, some of these hairstylists will tell you that your hair is hard to detangle because they don't want to take the time and put in the effort to detangle your hair as slowly and carefully as it should be. They want to be able to take a comb and just go brah, 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 brah. And if your hair is resistant to that type of aggressive method, well, then it must be your hair. There must be something wrong with it. It can't be me and my technique and my overall perspective on how I view your hair should react to my methods. It is definitely your fault. And the funniest part about it is that after they do these aggressive combing methods, they oftentimes leave your ends more uneven than they were over a long period of time, because a lot of that brushing and combing is causing breakage, which to a lot of people's eyes will look like quote unquote split ends that then have to be cut in another 3 months. Do you see how this becomes a vicious cycle that just keeps you in their chair? Finally, the last thing I always hear about why I should be trimming my hair is because trimming my hair will keep my hair healthy. What does that even mean? Let's talk about this word healthy. First of all, we're talking about hair strands, which means that they are dead. These are not real body parts on our body that we need to keep, quote unquote, alive. So when people say it will make your hair healthy, what they actually mean is it will make your hair look neat, clean, presentable, straight, smooth, what they deem healthy to be. And again, that's fine if that's how you define healthy, but that's not how everybody will define healthy for their hair. And I feel like this idea is really pushed hard on Black women because, of course, while trimming is something that is done in a lot of different cultures, it feels like we have an extra layer of aggressiveness and shame when it comes to Black women not wanting to trim their hair. There's this vibe of, you've done a bad thing, you're a bad naughty girl for not trimming your hair, and if you were to trim your hair and get on this so-called proper hair routine, then your hair would grow and it wouldn't just be stuck at shoulder length forever. But it's because you're doing this bad thing that it's not, and you really need to start doing this, and you really need to start getting better and coming to see me every few months so that your hair can start to be healthy and grow, and it's going to be great. And I think a lot of that stems from all of the issues that we've had culturally surrounding our hair over the past few centuries, where we are still, to a certain extent, trying to fit into this mold of needing our hair to be super presentable, super straight, super silky, super manageable. And all of those words, when you really break it down as to what that looks like, just has our hair looking like other hair types, as opposed to working around what our hair actually wants to do naturally. Disclaimer, because I know some people are going to get all kinds of upset at me. I am not saying that you should not trim your hair. And I'm not saying that trimming your hair is bad. What I am saying is that trimming your hair is not a necessity, as we have oftentimes been told that it is. And I am also saying that if you are somebody who wants to grow their hair longer, then continuing to trim your hair, the frequency that is typically prescribed, is counterproductive. If you're growing 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, then cutting your hair quarterly is typically going to slow you down. Maybe there are people who feel like that's not the case for me. And once I started to trim my hair super frequently, it was amazing and my hair grew super fast. I would say kudos to you, but that doesn't apply to everyone. And we should have different trains of thought on different topics so that people can figure out what methodology works best for them. When I posted that video back in 2023, there were some people who were truly offended that I was speaking out against trimming. And they said things like, I am doing harm to other women by saying these things and leading them astray by putting them potentially in a position where their hair is going to be damaged. Listen, we are all adults here on YouTube, okay? And if you're not, if you're like a minor, then I don't know, go ask your mom what you should do with your hair. But for the rest of us, we are all adults who can make our own decisions about our hair. I am not a doctor, and I am not giving you advice about how to take care of your liver or your body where you could potentially die. We're talking about hair strands on your head that are already dead. We're talking about something that is cosmetic, right? We're talking about how we want our hair to look. Again, when people talk about healthy hair, it oftentimes is just about what you want your hair to look like. If you never cut your hair in life, I promise you, you're not going to die from that. It may impact how your hair looks. It may impact how your hair feels. It may impact your lifestyle. Whether or not those impacts are good or bad, positive or negative, solely has to do with how you view your hair and the type of outcome that it is that you are looking for, which is up for you to decide, not for anyone else on YouTube or in a hair salon. You should take the words coming out of my mouth and everybody else's mouths into consideration, but ultimately, what I'm saying is not fact. It is simply my opinion about a lot of the narratives that we have been taught about trimming, and why I view this as a massive lie that has been pushed upon the natural hair community. As long as my hair continues to grow and I'm able to style it in the way that I look to style it, I see no reason as to why I have to ever cut my hair. And I don't see myself doing that anytime soon. But if I want to one day cut my hair into some type of like asymmetrical bob, it won't be because it's healthier for my hair. It'll be because I just like the way that that looks, which is totally fine, but that's different from feeling like I have to, out of necessity, to create healthy hair. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you trim your hair frequently? Have you ever felt pressure to do so? What's the longest that you've gone without a trim, and how does your hair look and feel?